At 7:15 on a Tuesday evening, with the brownstone sealed in its usual order and the kitchen preparing a dinner that had already occupied Nero Wolfe's anticipation more than any living client ever had, the doorbell rang, with a note I didn't like. A doorbell can sound insolent. This one did. I was in the office at my desk, sorting a file that had no business being on it after 6 o'clock, and Wolfe was behind his own, half sunk in the chair that had accepted his mass and habits with equal resignation. He had a book open and one finger marking a place. He looked up at me, not at the bell, which meant that opening the door was one of the many tasks in the world he considered both necessary and beneath comment. I went. On the stoop stood a woman in a dark coat with a velvet collar, maybe 35, maybe 40. And the kind of face that had once relied on prettiness and had since learned to manage very well on intelligence and discipline. She held no handbag, just gloves folded in one hand, and that alone was enough to make me attentive. Women who arrive in the evening without a bag either came in a rush or had planned not to stay long. Her eyes went past me into the hall as if she had already spent an hour deciding whether to cross that threshold. Yes? I must see Nero Wolfe. At once. They all must. Some do tomorrow. This cannot wait until tomorrow. Her voice was low and steady, but it had been ironed flat too carefully. My name is Evelyn Voss. If I leave now, a man may be dead before morning. That was good enough for one step aside. Come in. I took her to the office and announced her. Wolfe closed the book on one finger, though inserted a marker with ceremony, and set it down as if making a sacrifice to barbarism. Miss Voss, I said, she reports a possible corpse shortage by breakfast. I did not say possible, the woman said. I said may. There is a distinction. Wolfe looked at her with the expression he reserved for people who had spoken in his office before being invited to do so. Sit down. Mr. Goodwin, the chair by the Globe. Miss Voss, if you are about to waste my time, be brief. If not, be exact. She sat without fidgeting, which I liked better than the alternative. I'm not here because a murder has been committed. I'm here because I believe one is intended. Wolfe grunted. The city is full of intentions. This one concerns your table. That got him. Not much. A blink, maybe a tenth longer than usual. Since Wolfe's table was to him not furniture but doctrine, I leaned back and gave her my blessing to continue. She saw the blink too. Tomorrow evening I'm to attend a dinner in this house. You are mistaken, Wolfe said at once. I have invited no one. No, I invited myself, or rather, I arranged to be invited through a third party, and if that sounds impertinent, I know it. But the dinner will occur unless you prevent it, and if it occurs, one of the guests intends to kill another guest while seated at your table. I looked at Wolfe. His lips had tightened. To most people that would mean annoyance. On Wolfe it meant several things, one of them being that he was listening hard. He said, Explain. I'm secretary to Leonard Dykes. I knew the name. Dykes had built a fortune importing specialty foods, was the sort of man who could make paprika sound like a bloodline and vinegar like a sacrament. 2 months earlier, his firm had been mentioned in the papers over a dispute with a former partner. Nothing criminal. Just expensive. She went on. Mr. Dykes has become obsessed with proving that one of 4 people close to him has been stealing proprietary formulas, supplier contracts, and private correspondence. He engaged a private investigator. The investigator accomplished nothing except charging heavily and alarming everyone. Last week, Mr. Dykes received a note with no signature. It said, "You will learn the truth where appetite defeats caution." Archie Goodwin, connoisseur of bad anonymous notes, kept still. "Yesterday," she said, Mr. Dykes announced that he would settle matters by arranging a dinner at the only table in New York where lies might be less comfortable than the chairs. He meant this table. Wolfe's eyes closed, which was his version of slamming a door. Intolerable. So I told him, but someone had already spoken to a mutual acquaintance who believed he could make the introduction. I learned this afternoon that Mr. Dykes intends to arrive tomorrow with 4 guests. His daughter, his partner, his chef, and the former partner I mentioned. He believes that by seating them here, under your observation, he will see something that proves the theft. And you believe, I said, that one of them means to improve the evening with homicide. Yes. On what basis? She turned to me for the first time, as if deciding whether I was furniture. Because I found a second note in Mr. Dykes's study after he left the office. It had been tucked into the spine of his appointment ledger. It said, "If he serves the meal, he will not survive it." There was a short silence. From the kitchen came the faint percussion of metal on metal, civilized and reassuring. Wolfe said, "Why bring this to me instead of the police?" "Because the note may refer to Mr. Dykes, but I do not think it does. He never serves anything. He presides. The person who serves tomorrow's meal, in the practical sense, will be your household, your table, your service, your routine. If there is poison, substitution, or confusion, the blame will reach you before it reaches the intended victim." That was deft. Too deft to be accidental. I made a memo in my head. Wolfe opened his eyes. "You have omitted something." "Yes. Do not." She drew a breath. "I did not come only to protect Mr. Dykes. I came because my brother was employed by the firm and dismissed after the earlier dispute. He said the thefts were real, and that if the truth emerged, 2 reputations would collapse and 1 family with them. 3 weeks ago, he disappeared. Now we had blood in the broth." "Name?" I asked. "Thomas Voss." "Police informed?" "They took a report. They did not take him seriously before he vanished, and do not take me seriously now." Wolfe shifted in his chair. That movement, from him, was equivalent to most men standing up. "Mr. Goodwin, telephone this Leonard Dykes. Tell him that if he appears here tomorrow with uninvited guests, I will have him thrown into the street. Then tell him he may come at 9 this evening, alone, hence for 15 minutes. Miss Voss will remain until that is done." I got up. As I reached the door, Wolfe spoke again, to her this time. "Miss Voss, if you have lied, embellished, or manipulated, I will know it. If you have not, someone has shown execrable taste in selecting my dining room as a theater for murder." "I object." I got Dykes on the second try, which meant either he had been expecting a call or he had nothing better to do at that hour than hover near a telephone. His voice was the kind that practiced authority until it forgot it was practice. "This is Archie Goodwin, speaking for Nero Wolfe." A pause, then a careful adjustment. "Yes. You've been making plans that involve Mr. Wolfe's dining room without asking him. He objects. Strongly. If you appear here tomorrow with a party, as you will be removed with a lack of ceremony that will disappoint you." Another pause, shorter. "I had been told arrangements. You were told wrong. However, Mr. Wolfe is willing to see you tonight at 9, alone. 15 minutes. If that suits you, say so. If not, don't." "It suits me." "Good. Be punctual." I hung up and went back to the office. Miss Voss hadn't moved. Wolfe hadn't either, but the air had shifted, the way it does when he decides the world has offended him enough to warrant correction. "He will come," I said. "Of course," Wolfe said. "People who imagine themselves wronged are punctual. They fear that delay may cost them their grievance." Miss Voss's hands had tightened around her gloves, though her face was still under control. "Will you prevent the dinner?" "I will decide what to prevent when I know what exists," Wolfe said. "At present I know that a man of means has been robbed, that he intends to convert suspicion into theatre, that someone has threatened violence in terms sufficiently obscure to be either clever or adolescent, and that you have introduced yourself into my house under a pretext which may be both true and incomplete. I will not act on that. I have not—" He raised a finger. She stopped. "Mr. Goodwin," he said, Bring beer. That was Wolfe for, we will continue, but on my terms. I got the beer. Miss Voss declined when offered, which put her in a small minority that usually included people who had other things on their minds than refreshment. Wolfe regarded her. You will tell me the names of the 4 people, mister, and Dykes intends to bring. His daughter, Claire Dykes, his partner, Harold Bran, his chef, Matteo Rizzi, and his former partner, Simon Crail. I took a pencil. Claire, Bran, Rizzi, Crail. Any of them fond of poisoning? That would be a childish way to describe it, she said, which I liked a little less. Mr. Bran controls contracts and accounts. If anything has been diverted, he could do it with numbers. Mr. Rizzi controls the kitchen at the company's tasting facility. He knows flavors, substitutions, and how to disguise them. Mr. Crail, she stopped. Yes, Wolfe said. Mr. Crail was forced out, publicly. There was no proof of misconduct, but there was accusation enough. He lost more than money. And the daughter? She has access to everything by virtue of being his daughter, and nothing by virtue of being his daughter. Mister. And Dykes trusts her, and does not trust her. It is complicated. Everything is complicated to those who prefer complication, Wolfe said. What of your brother's relation to these people? He worked under Mr. Bran. He believed Mr. Bran was diverting information to Mr. Crail after the split. He also believed Mr. Rizzi had been paid to assist, though he could not prove it. He told me that Miss Dykes knew and said nothing. Convenient, I said. She looked at me. Convenient or accurate? Wolfe drank beer. You will remain for Mr. Dykes's arrival. After that, Mr. Goodwin will take you home. I would prefer to stay. You will not, Wolfe said. At 9 minutes to 9, I went to the front and opened the door before the bell could sound insolent again. Leonard Dykes was a man who had chosen his face and then lived with it. Broad, well-kept, with a trimmed beard that suggested decision. He carried himself as if the world had made an agreement with him and might break it if he didn't keep an eye on it. Mr. Goodwin, Mr. Dykes, this way. He entered as if he were granting us a favor. In the office, he stopped a pace from Wolfe's desk and inclined his head, not enough to be mistaken for deference. Mr. Wolfe. Sit down, Wolfe said. You have 15 minutes. Use them to tell the truth. Dykes sat. His eyes went once to Miss Voss and back. I did not expect. You will not concern yourself with your expectations, Wolfe said. Why did you attempt to appropriate my dining room? Dykes's mouth tightened. Because I require a neutral ground where observation is possible without interference. You require many things, Wolfe said. You're not entitled to them. Let's answer the question. I received a communication suggesting that the truth about a betrayal would be revealed where appetite defeats caution. I interpreted that as meaning that under conditions of hospitality, with defenses lowered, a guilty party would expose himself. Your table is known for intensity. I intended to create a situation in which conversation, tension, and the ritual of dining would produce a slip. Or a death, I said. His eyes flicked to me. I have no intention of anyone dying. Intentions are fashionable, Wolfe said. Facts are not. You have been robbed? Yes. By whom? I do not know. Then why those 4? Because each had access and motive. Bran could conceal the theft in accounts. Rizzi could facilitate access to proprietary processes. Crail has motive for revenge and contacts to exploit what he steals. Claire, he stopped. Yes, Wolfe said. My daughter is loyal, but loyalty can be divided. Miss Voss watched him without blinking. Wolfe said, You received 2 notes. Dykes's head turned. 2? Miss Voss spoke quietly. One that you received, one that you did not. It warned that if the meal was served, someone would not survive it. Dykes stared at her. For a second, the practiced authority slipped, and something like anger showed through. Why was I not informed? Because you do not listen when you have decided, she said. Enough, Wolfe said. Mr. Dykes, you will not bring anyone here tomorrow unless I permit it. If I do permit it, you will follow my instructions without deviation. If you do not, you will not cross my threshold. In return, I will determine whether your dinner is a foolishness or a trap, and if the latter, not for whom. Dykes leaned forward. And your fee? My fee will be determined by the degree of your impertinence, Wolfe said. At present it is high. Dykes considered, then nodded once. Very well. Names and addresses, I said, pencil ready. He gave them. I wrote. When he had gone, Miss Voss stood. You believe me now. I believe that a number of disagreeable possibilities have presented themselves, Wolfe said. Belief is not required. Mr. Goodwin, you will visit Mr. Bran and Mr. Rizzi tonight if possible, and Mr. Crail in the morning. You will observe Miss Dykes when convenient. You will also ascertain whether Thomas Voss has been seen by any of them within the last 3 weeks. And the dinner? I said. Wolfe closed his eyes again. The dinner will occur. If it does not, and the guilty will disperse, and we will be left with suspicion instead of knowledge. I will not have that. If a murder is intended at my table, it will be intended in my presence, and it will fail. Miss Voss let out a breath she had been saving. Thank you. Wolfe opened one eye. Do not thank me. I object to murder in general. In my dining room I forbid it. I took Miss Voss home first because Wolfe had said so, and because she looked like the kind of person who would stand on the curb afterward and reconsider her entire strategy if left alone too long. She gave me an address on the East Side, the kind of building that had decided long ago to be respectable and had succeeded by refusing to change anything since. At the door she turned. Do you believe my brother is alive? I believe he's important, I said. Us alive or dead tends to follow that. That's not an answer. It's the one you get tonight. Lock your door. Don't answer it unless you expect someone, and if you do expect someone, expect something else. She studied me, nodded once, and went inside. Bran was next. Harold Bran lived in a building that had a doorman who knew the value of looking as if he knew nothing. I gave my name, got an expression that said it might matter, and was sent up. Bran opened the door himself, which told me either he trusted no one or no one trusted him enough to be hired. He was thin in a way that had nothing to do with health and everything to do with appetite. His eyes were quick and tired at the same time, like a man who had been watching too many things for too long. Yes? Archie Goodwin. Nero Wolfe. That got me in. And his apartment was neat without being careful, which is a neat trick. He indicated a chair and took another, not behind a desk but angled, so we could both pretend this wasn't business if we wanted to. What does Wolfe want with me? He said. Depends. What do you want with him? I have no intention of seeing him. That's good. He has no intention of seeing you. Tomorrow night you may find yourselves in the same room anyway. His eyes sharpened. Dykes, I said. He's planning a dinner party. He thinks one of his nearest and dearest has been stealing from him. He wants to watch you all eat and see who chokes. Bran's mouth made a small movement that might have been a smile if it had gone on longer. Typical. Also typical, I said. Someone has suggested that if the meal is served, someone won't survive it. That landed. He leaned back a fraction. Is that a threat? Depends on your appetite. He watched me. You're asking if I intend to poison someone. I'm asking if you think someone intends to poison you. He let out a breath. Dykes has been impossible for months. Paranoid, secretive. He's convinced himself that theft explains everything. It doesn't. Markets shift. Suppliers change. Information leaks without malice. But he needs a villain, and if he can't find one, he'll make one. And you're not it. No. Who is? He hesitated, and in that hesitation there was something like calculation, not of whether to lie but how much to tell without committing to a story that might break later. Crail, he said finally. He left under a cloud. He has contacts who would profit from our proprietary information. If anything has been taken, and he would be the one to take it. And Rizzy cooks. He does not steal. Cooks can steal, I said. They have access to everything and are expected to touch it. Bran's eyes flicked. Rizzy is loyal. To whom? To his kitchen. I let that sit. And Claire? He looked away for the first time. Claire is caught between a father who trusts no one and a business that requires trust. She is not as cautious as she should be. Careless. Human. I stood. If you're invited to dinner tomorrow, accept. I haven't been invited. You will be. And you advise me to attend. I advise you to eat lightly and watch everyone else chew. He gave a short laugh that didn't reach his eyes. If Wolfe is involved, I may have no choice. You always have a choice, I said. You just don't always like the alternatives. Rizzy was harder to reach and easier to read. The tasting facility was closed when I got there, but kitchens have a way of breathing even when they're asleep, and I found him in the back, sleeves rolled, working on something that smelled like garlic and ambition. He was big, not in the Wolfe sense, but in the way of a man who has moved heavy things and expects to move more. He looked at me once, took in the suit, the shoes, the expression, and decided I was not there to order dinner. Closed, he said. I'm not here to eat, I said. Archie Goodwin. Nero Wolfe. That stopped him the way a sudden change in seasoning stops a cook. Wolfe? Tomorrow night. Dinner. You, Dykes, Bran, Crail, Claire. Sound familiar? He wiped his hands on a towel. As Dykes told me nothing about Wolfe. He tells people what suits him. Right now, it suits him to believe that if he gets you all in one room with good food, the truth will come out. Also, someone has suggested that if the meal is served, someone won't survive it. Rizzy's eyes narrowed. This is a joke. I don't joke about indigestion. He took a step closer. You think I would poison someone at a table? I cook. I do not kill. I didn't say you would. I said someone might. If they did, how would they do it? He hesitated, then shrugged. Simple. Something added late, when attention is elsewhere. A sauce? A garnish? Something everyone eats but one person eats more. Or a substitution in a single plate. It depends. On access. On opportunity, he said. Access is easy. Opportunity is art. And loyalty, I said. But he looked at me as if I had asked him to define water. Loyalty is to the plate. You serve what you intend to serve. Anything else is insult. To whom? To yourself. I nodded. If you're invited tomorrow, come. I will not come to be accused. You might come to avoid being accused later. He considered that, then went back to his stove as if the conversation had been an interruption he had already forgotten. I let him. Outside, the night had settled into something cooler. Crail would have to wait until morning, which left me with a walk back to the brownstone and a head full of people, who all had reasons to lie and some who might have reasons to kill. Wolfe would be in his chair, considering it all without moving more than necessary, which is to say, not at all. When I got back, he was exactly where I had left him, and the book closed now. The beer gone, the expression unchanged. Well, he said. Bran points at Crail, Rizzy points at the plate, and neither of them likes the idea of dying over dinner, I said. No one has volunteered to be the murderer. People seldom do, Wolfe said. Tomorrow will improve their candor. Or their aim. He snorted. If there is to be a murder at my table, Mr. Goodwin, it will require permission. I do not grant it. Morning at the brownstone runs on rules the way other places run on electricity, and breaking one is about as popular. I got mine broken anyway. At 9:10, with Wolfe upstairs in the plant rooms and Fritz conducting his usual symphony in the kitchen, the doorbell rang again with that same note of impatience I'd heard the night before, and I opened it to find a young woman with pale hair pulled back too tightly and eyes that hadn't slept. She didn't wait to be invited in. "I'm Claire Dykes," she said. "I need to see Nero Wolfe." "They all do," I said. "Some make appointments. This is not something that waits." "It never is," I told her. "Come in." She went straight to the office and stood instead of sitting, which made the room look smaller. I didn't offer her a chair. Wolfe came down 5 minutes later, slower than usual, which meant he had decided to appear slower than usual. He took his place and looked at her. "Miss Dykes, you know who I am. I know what you are called. Sit down." She sat. "My father spoke to you," she said. "He spoke," Wolfe said. "I listened. That is not the same as conversation." Her hands were clenched in her lap, the knuckles showing white. "He is making a mistake." "Yes," Wolfe said. "He makes several. You will specify which one concerns you. This dinner. It will not produce what he wants. It will make things worse." "Worse than theft and threats?" "Yes, that is a claim. Support it." She looked at me, then back at Wolfe. "Because if he goes through with it, someone will force a conclusion that may not be true." "Someone?" I said. "You mean you?" "No." "Who then?" "I don't know." Wolfe made a small sound. "You know more than you have said." Her chin lifted a fraction. "I know that Mr. Bran and Mr. Crail hate each other. I know that Mr. Rizzi resents my father's interference in his work. I know that my father trusts no one, and that he has made that very clear. Put those people in one room with an accusation hanging over them, and you will get something. Behind it may not be the truth." "Truth does not depend on civility," Wolfe said. "It depends on fact. And facts can be arranged," she said. I liked her better for that. "Your brother, Thomas Voss," Wolfe said, watching her closely. "When did you last see him?" She blinked. "I haven't seen him in weeks." "Why would I?" "Because he is relevant," Wolfe said. "Answer." "I saw him 3 weeks ago. He came to the office. He wanted to speak to Mr. Bran. They argued. He left, that is all." "What did they argue about?" "I don't know." "Did you hear anything?" She hesitated. "He said something about numbers not matching, about shipments that existed on paper and nowhere else." "And Mr. Bran?" "He told him to mind his own business." "Which it was," Wolfe said. "Continue." "That's all. Thomas left. I didn't see him again." "Did you inform your father of the argument?" "Yes, and he did nothing. He had already decided Thomas was not reliable." "Convenient," I said. She looked at me sharply. "Are you accusing me of something?" "Not yet," I said. "I'm collecting material." Wolfe closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. "You will attend the dinner?" "No," she said at once. "You will," he said, "because your absence would be a statement, and I do not permit statements I have not examined. You will sit where I place you, you will eat what is served, and you will answer when addressed. You will not attempt to leave before I dismiss you." "You can't." "I can refuse your presence in my house," Wolfe said. "If you wish to exclude yourself from the only place where the truth may be forced to appear, you are free to do so. But you will do it, knowing that you have chosen ignorance." She stared at him. After a moment, her shoulders dropped a fraction. "Very well." "Good," Wolfe said. "Mr. Goodwin will see you out." At the door she stopped. "You think one of us is going to try to kill someone?" "I think," Wolfe said, "that someone wishes me to believe that. That is more interesting." After she left, Wolfe turned to me. "Mr. Goodwin, Mr. Crail." "On my way," I said. Simon Crail lived downtown in a place that had once been elegant and had since decided to be practical. He opened the door after a long enough delay to suggest he had considered not opening it at all. He was older than the others, though not by much, and wore his age like a coat he had not chosen. His eyes were steady and unpleasant. "Yes?" "Archie Goodwin," asked Nero Wolfe. "I have nothing to say to Wolfe. That's a pity. He has things to say to you. I am not interested." "You will be," I said. "Tomorrow night." He stared at me. Dykes, I said. "He wants to gather you, Bran, Rizzy, and his daughter for a dinner where he can watch you all squirm and decide who has been stealing from him. Also, someone has suggested that if the meal is served, someone will not survive it." Crail's mouth twitched. "Dykes always did have a taste for drama." "You don't." "I have a taste for justice," he said, "which Dykes would not recognize if it was served with his name on it. You think he's wrong about the thefts. I think he is blind to the possibility that he has been robbing himself." "That's interesting," I said. "How?" "By forcing people into positions where they must protect themselves. By cutting out partners and expecting loyalty from those who remain. By treating everyone as a suspect until they become one." "And you?" I said. "What do you become?" He smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. "I become someone who is no longer obliged to pretend." "Are you coming tomorrow?" "If Wolfe allows it," he said. "He will," I said. "He prefers his enemies in one room." "I am not his enemy." "No," I said. "You're just someone who might kill one." He held my gaze. "If someone dies at that table, it will not be by accident." "Nothing at that table will be by accident," I said. "That's the point." On the way back, I turned it over. Bran with his numbers, Rizzy with his kitchen, Crail with his grievance, Claire with her divided loyalties, and Dykes with his need to make everything fit a pattern he had already chosen. So somewhere in that mix was a missing man and a threat that might be a bluff or might be a promise. When I got back, Wolfe was where he always was, which was to say at the center of it. "Well," he said, "Crail thinks Dykes is robbing himself. Bran thinks Crail is the thief. Rizzy thinks loyalty is a plate, and Claire thinks the truth will be forced whether it's true or not," I said. "Everyone is right, which means at least 3 of them are wrong." Wolfe nodded. "And Thomas Voss?" "Argued with Bran about phantom shipments and vanished." Wolfe's lips moved, not quite a smile. "Then we have a theft that may not exist, a disappearance that does, and a dinner that will occur. Prepare, Mr. Goodwin. Tonight we dine with a murderer, whether he attends or not." If there's one thing sacred in the brownstone besides Wolfe's orchids, it's the dinner schedule, and by late afternoon the whole place had that particular tension that comes when something external has been allowed to creep too close to it. Fritz was moving with the precision of a man who knew that perfection was expected and interruption was inevitable. I stayed out of his way, which is to say I hovered just close enough to irritate him without getting thrown out. Wolfe had issued instructions and then retreated into stillness, which for him meant thinking hard enough to be dangerous. I had been given my own orders, most of which boiled down to watching everything and interfering with nothing unless told. That left me free to notice small things, which is usually where trouble likes to hide. At 5 o'clock, I found one. It was in the office, not the kitchen, which made it worse. And Wolfe's desk was as it had been when we left it after lunch. Papers aligned, blotter unmarked, pen placed precisely where it belonged. The globe stood where it always did, minding its own continents. Nothing was disturbed, which was the first sign that something had been. On the edge of the desk, just within reach of Wolfe's hand, lay a folded piece of paper that had not been there before. I didn't touch it. I looked at it, then at the door, then at the window, then back at it. The window was closed, the door had been in sight, and no one had been in the room except me, which meant either I'd gone blind for a moment or someone had been better than I was. I didn't like either option. I took it to Wolfe. He opened it with the care he reserved for things that might explode without making a sound. Inside was a single line, written in a hand that tried not to be a hand. "The table will choose." Wolfe read it twice, then handed it to me. "Excruciating," he said. "Not exactly informative," I agreed. "But it got here without ringing the bell." "Yes," Wolfe said. "That is more interesting." "Someone in the house." He looked at me. "If you suspect Fritz, you are a fool. If you suspect Theodore, you are a greater one. If you suspect yourself, you may be useful. Consider." "I consider that whoever wrote this wants you to think the dinner itself will decide something, or that it will be decided by how it's served, or that the instrument of choice will be the meal," Wolfe said, which we already knew. "Not like this," I said. "This says it's not just an opportunity, it's the method." Wolfe closed his eyes. "Mr. Goodwin, you will do two things. First, you will ensure that no one enters the kitchen except Fritz and those he admits. Second, you will ensure that no one approaches this office unobserved. If that requires you to sit in the hall like a watchdog, do so. If anyone objects, tell them I object more. And you?" "I will think," he said. "It is the one activity I perform better than most." By 6, the house was locked down in a way that would have made a bank jealous. Fritz tolerated my presence in the kitchen with the air of a man who had been told to accept an unpleasant necessity. Theodore had been instructed to remain upstairs with his orchids and not descend for any reason short of catastrophe. I took up a position in the hall where I could see both the front door and the office, which made me feel like a piece of furniture with opinions. The first to arrive was Bran, but he came early, which fit him. He wore a suit that had been chosen for its ability to suggest reliability without inviting attention. He looked around the hall as if cataloguing it, which he probably was. "Mr. Goodwin," he said. "Mr. Bran, you're ahead of schedule." "I prefer it. Sit in the office. Don't touch anything. If you do, I'll know." He gave a thin smile and went in. Rizzy came next, exactly on time, carrying nothing but himself and a faint smell of garlic that seemed to follow him like a reputation. He nodded to me and said nothing, which I appreciated. I sent him in. Claire arrived a minute later. She looked composed, which meant she had spent the last hour forcing herself into it. She met my eyes for a second, then went in without speaking. Crail came last, 2 minutes late, which might have been deliberate. Now he paused on the threshold as if measuring the place, then stepped inside. Dykes arrived after all of them, which was either arrogance or strategy. He took in the hall, me, the closed kitchen door, and the office beyond, and his jaw tightened. "Everything is ready," he said. "Everything is as it will be," I said. "That's different." He went in. I stayed where I was. The house held its breath. From the office came the low murmur of voices, not loud enough to distinguish words, just enough to tell me that 5 people who did not trust each other were pretending to be civilized. I let them. It was part of the performance. Fritz came out of the kitchen once, gave me a look that would have discouraged a lesser man, and went back in without speaking. That told me everything was on track, which in this case meant something was about to go wrong. But at 7:15, Wolfe's door opened and he emerged, moving with that deliberate weight that made every step an announcement. He did not look at me as he passed, which meant he expected me to follow without being told. I did. In the office, the 5 of them were arranged in a loose semicircle, none of them sitting comfortably. Wolfe took his place behind the desk and looked at them as if they were items on a list he intended to revise. "You will all dine here," he said. "You will do so under conditions I dictate. You will not rise from the table without permission. You will not touch anything not placed before you. You will not address the kitchen. You will not attempt to leave until I permit it. If any of you object, you may depart now and be excluded from what follows." No one moved. "Good," Wolfe said. Then we proceed. He turned to me. Mr. Goodwin, you will observe the service. You will note any deviation. You will not interfere unless I instruct you. And if someone tries to drop dead, I said. Then you will observe that as well, Wolfe said. It may be instructive. He rose, which he did not often do, and that alone was enough to tighten the air another notch. Dinner, he said. We went to the dining room. The table was set as it always was, perfect in a way that had nothing to do with beauty and everything to do with control. Plates, glasses, silver, all placed with the kind of precision that suggested nothing here would be left to chance. Except, of course, everything. They took their seats where Wolfe indicated, which was not where any of them would have chosen. I stayed back, ante where I could see all of them and the door to the kitchen. Fritz began the service, moving with the assurance of a man who knew that the food would be flawless and the company would not. The first course was served. No one ate. Wolfe looked at them. You will eat, he said. If you intend to die, you will do so politely. One by one they lifted their forks, and the table, as promised, began to choose. The first bites went down like confessions nobody wanted to make. You could see it in the way they held their forks, in the fraction of hesitation before each mouthful, in the quick, almost embarrassed glances they gave one another as if trying to catch someone else dying first. If there was poison on that table, it had already done its best work by getting invited. Wolfe did not sit. He stood at the head of the table, her hands resting lightly on the back of his chair, watching them with the same attention he gave a particularly stubborn orchid. I stayed near the door, close enough to Fritz's line of movement to intercept if needed, far enough from the table to avoid becoming part of the experiment. Proceed, Wolfe said. They did. The first course disappeared at a pace that was neither hurried nor relaxed. No one spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was crowded with things nobody wanted to say first. Bran was the first to break. He set his fork down with a small click. This is absurd. Yes, Wolfe said. Absurdity often precedes revelation. Continue eating. I will not be made a spectacle. You are not made, Wolfe said. You are. Bran's eyes flicked to Dykes. This is your doing. Dykes met his gaze. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. That is a phrase for men who have never been accused, Bran said. Or for men who have been, Crail said quietly. That got them all looking at him. You would know, Bran said. I would, Crail said, which is why I find this entertaining. Claire shifted in her chair. This isn't helping. Helping what? I said. The digestion. Rizzy said nothing. He ate. That was interesting. A man who cooked for a living doesn't eat without thinking about it. He was thinking. Fritz removed the plates and brought the second course. I watched his hands, his timing, the way he set each dish down. Perfect, as always. If there was anything wrong with what he served, it had been wrong before it reached him. Wolfe spoke again. Mr. Dykes, you will explain to your guests why they are here. Dykes straightened slightly. I've been robbed, he said. Information has been taken from my firm. Contracts, supplier details, proprietary formulations. Someone at this table has facilitated that theft. Bran made a small sound. You have no proof. I have evidence, Dykes said. You have suspicion, Crail said. I have enough, Dykes snapped. Enough for what? Claire said. To accuse all of us at once? To observe, Dykes said, controlling himself. To see how you react. You are seeing how we react to being insulted, Bran said. And threatened, Claire added. And amused, Crail said. Rizzy put his fork down. And hungry, he said. They all looked at him. If you intend to accuse, he said, accuse. If you intend to feed, feed. This, he gestured at the table, is neither. Wolfe inclined his head slightly. A useful distinction. Mr. Dykes, and your performance lacks discipline. I will supply it. Dykes opened his mouth, then closed it. Mr. Goodwin, Wolfe said, the note. I took it from my pocket and handed it to him. He unfolded it and placed it on the table where they could all see. The table will choose, he read. This was delivered to my desk this afternoon without the courtesy of a doorbell. It suggests that the mechanism of decision tonight is not conversation, but consumption. Bran stared at it. You think one of us brought poison into this house? I think someone wishes me to consider that possibility, Wolfe said. Which is not the same thing. Then what is? Claire said. Wolfe looked at her. A diversion. Crail leaned back. From what? From a fact that is not on this table, Wolfe said. Yet. Dykes frowned. What fact? Wolfe did not answer. Instead, he turned his gaze to Rizzy. Mr. Rizzy, you described last night how a poison might be introduced at table. Rizzy's eyes narrowed. I described possibilities. Describe this, Wolfe said. If a dish were altered before it reached the kitchen, would you detect it? Rizzy hesitated. Depends on the dish. This one, Wolfe said, indicating the second course. Rizzy looked at it, then at Wolfe. Yes. Why? Because I know what it should be, Rizzy said. If it is not, I would taste it. Then taste it, Wolfe said. Rizzy stared at him. You have already served it. Indeed, Wolfe said. Taste it. Rizzy picked up his fork, took a small portion, and ate. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them. It is as it should be, he said. Good, Wolfe said. Continue eating. They did, though now each bite had a different weight, and the possibility of poison had been raised, examined, and dismissed, at least for the moment. That left everything else. Mr. Bran, Wolfe said, you handle accounts. Yes. You have been accused, implicitly or explicitly, of concealing theft. I have been accused by a man who does not understand his own business, Bran said. Explain, Wolfe said. Bran took a breath. Dykes sees discrepancies and assumes malice. He does not see the complexity of the supply chain. Goods are ordered, shipped, delayed, substituted. Paperwork does not always match reality. That is not theft. That is commerce. And phantom shipments? Wolfe said. Bran's eyes flicked just once. What phantom shipments? Those observed by Thomas Voss? Wolfe said. There it was. The name dropped like a stone into a still pool. Claire stiffened. Dykes frowned. Crail watched. Rizzy went still. Bran said, Voss was mistaken. He disappeared, I said. That is not my responsibility, Bran said. It may be your problem, Wolfe said. Silence again, but this time it had edges. Mr. Crail, Wolfe said, you suggested that Mr. Dykes has been robbing himself. I did, Crail said. Explain. By creating an environment where information is currency and trust is non-existent, Crail said. People protect themselves. They take copies, make arrangements, secure their positions. It looks like theft. It is self-defense. And you, Wolfe said. What have you taken? Crail smiled faintly. Only what I was owed. Which is? Everything I helped build. Dykes's hand tightened on his fork. You were paid. I was dismissed, Crail said. The tension tightened another notch, and if anyone was going to leap across the table, it would be now. No one did. Wolfe raised a hand slightly. Enough. The meal proceeds. The facts accumulate. Mr. Goodwin, attend. Fritz entered with the next course. As he set the plates down, I noticed something. It wasn't in the food, it wasn't in the hands, it was in the placement. One plate, set before Claire, was a fraction of an inch out of line with the others. Fritz didn't make mistakes like that. I stepped forward. "Hold it." Everyone looked at me. Wolfe did not move. "Mr. Goodwin?" "That plate," I said. "It's wrong." Fritz frowned, offended. "It is not wrong." "It's not where you put it," I said. "You don't miss by that much." Rizzy leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Let me see." Claire froze. The table had begun to choose. Rizzy didn't wait for permission. He rose halfway from his chair and leaned in, not touching the plate yet, just looking at it the way a man looks at something that might insult him personally. Fritz drew himself up, bristling. "There is nothing wrong with my service." "I didn't say there was," I told him. "I said something's off." Claire hadn't moved. Her hands were in her lap again, but this time they were too still. Wolfe's voice cut through it. "Mr. Rizzy, you will not touch the plate." Rizzy stopped, still bent forward. "Then what do you want me to do?" "Observe," Wolfe said. "You are good at that when you remember to be." Rizzy straightened slowly. Wolfe turned his head slightly. "Mr. Goodwin, you will exchange Miss Dykes's plate with your own." Claire's eyes snapped to him. "No." "Yes," Wolfe said. "Auntie, I will not eat from another plate." "You will eat from the plate placed before you after the exchange," Wolfe said, "or you will leave my house and remove yourself from the only process that may protect you." That held her. For a second I thought she might bolt anyway, but then she nodded once, tight. I stepped forward, took my plate, and swapped it with hers. I didn't do it delicately. If there was something wrong, I wanted it wrong in my hands. "Sit," Wolfe said. I sat in the chair beside the door, the plate now in front of me. Everyone watched me like I was about to perform a trick. "Well," I said, "you want a demonstration?" "Eat," Wolfe said. I took a bite. If there was anything in it, it was subtle. No bitterness, no sharp edge, no immediate protest from my tongue or throat. It tasted like what Fritz would serve, which was to say better than most people deserved. I chewed, swallowed, waited. Nothing. Rizzy leaned forward again, eyes on me. Well, I'm not dead yet," I said. "Give it a minute." We gave it 2. Nothing happened. Wolfe nodded once. "Continue." Claire exhaled, not quite a relief, more like a postponement. "Mr. Goodwin," Wolfe said, "describe the difference you observed." "The plate was out of line," I said. "Not by much, but enough. Fritz doesn't miss." "I do not," Fritz said, still offended. "No," Wolfe said, "you do not. Therefore the plate was moved after it was placed." "By whom?" Dykes said sharply. "That," Wolfe said, "is the question." They all looked at one another, and it was a better show than any theater. Suspicion doesn't need dialogue. "I didn't touch it," Claire said. "No one has accused you," Wolfe said. You implied it," she shot back. "I implied nothing. Mr. Goodwin observed a deviation. We examine it." Bran spoke. "This is absurd. We are discussing the alignment of a plate." "We are discussing the fact that someone at this table had both the opportunity and the inclination to alter the service," Wolfe said. "The reason for that alteration remains to be determined." Crail smiled faintly. Perhaps it was a test. "Perhaps," Wolfe said. "By whom?" Crail shrugged. "By you." Wolfe's eyes rested on him. "If I wished to test you, Mr. Crail, I would not employ such a crude method." Rizzy spoke again. "If the plate was moved, it was done after service. That means while Fritz was in the kitchen." "And while Mr. Goodwin was in the hall," Wolfe said. I spread my hands. "I didn't come in here until the call." "No one suggests you did," Wolfe said. Which leaves 4. 5, Brand said. "You were not seated." "I was not," Wolfe agreed. "And I did not approach the table." "You expect us to believe that?" Brand said. "I expect you to believe nothing," Wolfe said. "I expect you to observe." Dykes's patience snapped a little. "Enough of this. If there was poison, Mr. Goodwin would have felt it. Not necessarily, Rizzy said. There are substances that act slowly, that accumulate. Claire's eyes went back to the plate in front of me. Comforting, I said. Anyone want to trade back? No, Wolfe said. You will continue. I took another bite. Still nothing. Wolfe turned to Dykes. Mr. Dykes, when you received the first note, you interpreted it as an invitation to observe. When the second was found, it suggested danger in the act of serving. Now a third appears, and a plate is moved. Do you still believe this is a matter of simple theft? Dykes hesitated. That was new. No, he said finally. I believe someone is trying to manipulate this situation. Good, Wolfe said. You have advanced. To what? Brand said. To the possibility, Wolfe said, that the theft is either a fiction or a symptom. That the true objective is not the removal of information, but the arrangement of perception. Crail leaned back. Meaning? Meaning, Wolfe said, that if one wished to remove a person, discredit a rival, or provoke a decisive act, one might create a situation in which suspicion is universal, and proof is elusive. Thomas Voss, I said. Wolfe nodded. Precisely. A man observes discrepancies. He argues. He disappears. A dinner is arranged. Threats are issued. Plates are moved. All of this produces tension. Under tension, now people act. Act how? Claire said. According to their nature, Wolfe said, which is what we are here to observe. Rizzy frowned. You think this is about forcing someone to reveal themselves? I think, Wolfe said, that someone has already done so. We have merely failed to recognize it. Silence again, but this time it was different. Not just tension, but something like expectation. Dykes looked around the table. Then who? Wolfe did not answer immediately. He looked at each of them in turn, his gaze resting just long enough to make them uncomfortable. Then he said, Mr. Goodwin, the note was placed on my desk without your observation. The plate was moved without Fritz's. Both acts required access and timing. Both acts were designed to influence my perception. Therefore, they were designed for me. Meaning the target isn't Dykes, I said. Or not exclusively, Wolfe said. The table does not choose. It is chosen. Crail's smile faded. Bran leaned forward. If you have a conclusion, state it. I have a direction, Wolfe said. The conclusion will require one more act. And what is that? Claire said. Wolfe's lips moved, not quite a smile. Dessert, he said. Fritz appeared at the door as if on cue. The table was not finished choosing. Fritz entered with dessert the way a general enters a battlefield he has already won. The tray was steady, the plates aligned, the portions exact. Whatever else was happening in that room, the food was not at fault. That left the rest of us. He served in the same order as before. I watched every placement, every movement of his hands, and every inch of distance between plate and table edge. This time, nothing was out of line. If there was going to be another deviation, it would not be so simple. Wolfe remained standing. Mr. Goodwin, he said, you will not exchange plates this time. Comforting, I said. You will, however, observe closely. I've been doing that, I said. Do it better. They all looked at the dessert as if it might announce its intentions. No one reached for a fork. Eat, Wolfe said. Dykes moved first this time, perhaps out of stubbornness. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed, and waited. Nothing happened. One by one the others followed, though none with enthusiasm. I kept my eyes on their hands. Claire held her fork lightly, almost carelessly, but her wrist was too stiff. Bran ate in small, measured bites, the way a man eats when he wants to control the pace of everything around him. Rizzy ate as if evaluating, his attention on the food even now. Crail ate slowly, watching the others more than his plate. Dykes ate like a man, proving a point. Wolfe spoke. "Mr. Crail, you have suggested that Mr. Dykes has created his own difficulties. You have also indicated that you have taken what you believe you were owed. Define that." Crail did not look at him. "I have already said enough." "You have said nothing," Wolfe said. "You have implied. That is not the same." Crail set his fork down. "Very well. When I left the firm, I ensured that certain relationships remained available to me. Contacts, suppliers, channels of information. Dykes calls that theft. I call it continuity." "And the proprietary formulations?" Wolfe said. Crail smiled faintly. "Those are recipes, Mr. Wolfe. They exist to be used." "By whom?" "By those who can." Dykes's hand tightened again. "You admit it." "I admit nothing you can prove," Crail said. Bran spoke. "This is pointless. We all know Crail has been exploiting what he can. That does not explain the discrepancies." "No," Wolfe said. "It does not, which is why it is not the answer." Bran turned to him. "Then what is?" Wolfe did not answer him. He looked at Claire instead. "Miss Dykes, you informed your father of Mr. Voss's concerns?" "Yes." "You informed no one else?" "No." "Not Mr. Bran?" "No." "Not Mr. Rizzi?" "No." "Not Mr. Crail?" "Of course not." Wolfe nodded. "Yet the matter became known beyond the office." "How?" Claire's eyes flickered. "I don't know." "Consider," Wolfe said. "Mr. Voss confronts Mr. Bran. He speaks of discrepancies. He leaves. Not he disappears. Subsequently, anonymous notes appear, suggesting that a dinner will reveal the truth and that the act of serving may be dangerous. These notes reach Mr. Dykes and, indirectly, me. They are designed to bring these individuals together under controlled conditions." "And?" Claire said. "And," Wolfe said, "someone wished that." Rizzi frowned. "You think one of us wrote the notes?" "I think," Wolfe said, "that someone with access to all of you did." Dykes looked up sharply. "Who?" Wolfe turned his head slightly. "Mr. Goodwin, Miss Voss." I blinked. "She's not here." "She is," Wolfe said. At that moment, the door to the dining room opened. Evelyn Voss stood there. No one spoke. For a second, even Fritz stopped moving. She stepped in, composed as she had been the night before. But there was something different now, and not less control, more purpose. "I believe," she said, "that I was invited to observe." Dykes half rose. "What is this?" Wolfe gestured to a chair that had not been set at the table but stood against the wall. "Miss Voss, you will sit." She did. Claire stared at her. "You had no right." "I had every reason," Miss Voss said quietly. Bran's eyes narrowed. "What is she doing here?" "Contributing," Wolfe said. "Miss Voss, you will tell them what you told me." She folded her hands. "My brother discovered discrepancies in the firm's accounts. He believed that shipments were being recorded that did not exist, and that others were being diverted. He believed that Mr. Bran was responsible, possibly in cooperation with Mr. Crail. He also believed that Miss Dykes knew more than she admitted." Claire's face flushed. That's a lie." "Is it?" Miss Voss said. Dykes looked from one to the other. "Claire!" "I told you what I knew," Claire said. "You told me what you chose," Miss Voss said. Rizzi spoke. "And the notes?" Miss Voss did not look at him. "I wrote them." That landed harder than anything else had. Bran let out a short laugh. "So this entire farce was necessary," Miss Voss said. "For what?" Crail said. "For this," she said, and gestured at the table. "For all of you to be in one place under conditions where you could not avoid one another or control the narrative." "You manipulated this," Dykes said. "Yes." "Why?" Claire said. Miss Voss's eyes moved to her. "Because my brother is dead," Silence. No one moved. No one breathed. "He is dead," she said again, as if the first time might not have been enough. And one of you killed him." The table had chosen, or thought it had. No one argued with her at first. That was the most convincing part. People deny quickly when they can. When they don't, it's because something has landed too close to where they keep their answers. Dykes was the first to move. He sank back into his chair as if the legs had shortened under him. "Dead," he said. "You're certain?" "I saw the report," Miss Voss said. "Unofficial. A body found in the river 3 days ago. No identification. I identified him." Claire made a small sound, not quite a word. Bran's face had gone flat. Rizzy looked at the table as if it had betrayed him. Crail alone kept his expression, though something behind it had tightened. "You went to the police," I said. "Yes," Miss Voss said. "They are not interested in theories without evidence. I intend to provide them by arranging a dinner," Bran said. "Ingenious. By arranging a situation," she said, "in which the truth would have fewer places to hide." Wolfe spoke. "Miss Voss, you have been industrious. You have also been imprecise. You have created conditions. You have not identified the actor." "I will," she said. "No," Wolfe said. "You will not. You lack the necessary discipline." She met his gaze. "Then do it." Wolfe inclined his head slightly. "I will." Dykes leaned forward. "If one of them killed Voss, I want to know who." "Of course you do," Wolfe said. "You have arranged an evening for that purpose. Unfortunately, your arrangement was incompetent. Miss Voss's was merely energetic. I will supply the deficiency." Bran pushed his plate away. "Enough. This has gone far beyond a business dispute. Not if you are accusing one of us of murder. You will state it plainly, or I will leave." "You will not leave," Wolfe said without raising his voice. "You will sit. You will listen. You will answer when addressed. If you attempt to depart, Mr. Goodwin will prevent you." I gave Bran a look that said I wouldn't enjoy it, but I would manage. He stayed. Wolfe turned his attention to the table as a whole. "We have 3 threads. First, alleged theft within Mr. Dykes's firm. Second, the disappearance and now confirmed death of Thomas Voss. Third, a series of notes and manipulations designed to bring all relevant parties into this room and to create an expectation of violence associated with the meal." He paused. No one spoke. "These threads intersect," he went on. "They do not coincide. That is the first point. The theft may exist. It may not. And it is not central. The murder is central. The notes are instrumental." "You said she wrote the notes," Bran said, jerking his chin toward Miss Voss. "I said she wrote some of them," Wolfe said. "Not all." Miss Voss stiffened. "I wrote both notes." "No," Wolfe said. "You wrote the first. You did not write the second." She stared at him. "I did." "You did not," Wolfe said. "The second note, the one discovered in Mr. Dykes' study, was placed with knowledge of his habits, but not of his mind. It mischaracterized him. It suggested that he serves. He does not. It also employed a phrasing inconsistent with your first communication." "That proves nothing," she said. "It proves that you lie," Wolfe said mildly. "Not necessarily about the murder. About your methods." She went still. "Why?" Claire said. Why would you lie about that?" Miss Voss's eyes flickered. "Because I needed this to happen." "And you needed it to appear more dangerous than it was," Wolfe said, "which suggests that you feared it might not occur without additional impetus." Rizzy spoke. "So there were 2 authors." "At least," Wolfe said. "Miss Voss created the premise. Another created the threat." "Which brings us back to poison," I said. "No," Wolfe said. "It brings us to intent." He turned to Bran. "Mr. Bran, you described discrepancies as the result of complexity." Mr. Voss disagreed. "He confronted you. You dismissed him. He vanished. What did you do then? Nothing, Brand said. That is not credible, Wolfe said. A subordinate accuses you of irregularities. He disappears. You do nothing? I'm not responsible for his disappearance, Brand said, not a little too quickly. I did not say you were, Wolfe said. I asked what you did. Brand hesitated. I reviewed the accounts and found nothing that could not be explained. By you, Wolfe said. Mr. Crail, you suggested that information had been diverted. Have you received any such information? Crail smiled thinly. I receive information all the time. Relevant information, Wolfe said. Occasionally. From whom? From people who wish to sell it, Crail said. Such as Mr. Brand. Brand snapped. This is ridiculous. Wolfe ignored him. Mr. Rizzi, you control access to the tasting facility. Could someone remove materials without your knowledge? Rizzi shook his head. Not easily. Could Mr. Voss have done so? No. Could Mr. Brand? Not without being seen. Could Miss Dykes? Rizzi hesitated. She could enter. Could she remove materials? Not without assistance, Rizzi said. Wolfe nodded. Which leaves Mr. Crail, who no longer has access, and Mr. Brand, who has access but denies irregularity. We have a dead man who observed discrepancies, a woman who sought to force a revelation, and an unknown party who sought to add a threat of death to that revelation. He paused again, letting it settle. Mr. Goodwin, he said, the plate. I blinked. The plate. The misaligned plate, Wolfe said. Describe precisely when you observed it. After the second course was served, I said. It was in front of Claire. It had been placed correctly, then moved. By whom? I didn't see. Who had the opportunity? Everyone at the table, I said. Except you and me. Fritz was in the kitchen. Precisely, Wolfe said. And why move it? To signal something, I said, or to set up the idea of tampering. To whom? Wolfe said. To you, I said. Correct, Wolfe said. The act was not to poison Miss Dykes. It was to attract my attention. It was successful. Therefore, the actor intended me to notice. Why? Claire said. Because without my attention, the remainder of the performance would lack authority, Wolfe said. The actor wished me to legitimize the proceeding. Miss Voss leaned forward. You think one of them moved the plate to draw you in? I think, Wolfe said, that the same person who authored the second note moved the plate. The style is consistent. The objective is identical, to escalate the situation beyond Miss Voss's initial design. And that person, Dykes said, his voice tight, killed Voss. Wolfe looked at him. Yes. The room held still. Then say who, Brand said. Wolfe settled back into his chair for the first time since dinner had begun. I will, he said, after one more question. He turned his gaze to Claire. Miss Dykes, he said, when Mr. Voss confronted Mr. Brand, you said you overheard nothing of substance. That was untrue. You heard enough. What did you hear? Claire's face had gone pale. For a moment I thought she would refuse. Then she said very quietly, he said he had proof. Of what? Wolfe said. Of shipments that didn't exist, she said. Of payments made for goods that were never delivered. He said he knew where the money was going. And, Wolfe said, and he said he was going to tell you, she said, looking at her father. Dykes stared at her. Why didn't you tell me that? She didn't answer him. She was looking at Wolfe. And, Wolfe said gently, whom did he say he would name? Claire closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked not at her father, not at Brand, not at Crail. She looked at Rizzi. The table had not chosen at all. It had been arranged. Rizzi didn't move at first. That was the thing about him. He understood stillness the way other men understood noise. But this wasn't the stillness of control anymore. It was calculation. Claire held his gaze, and for a second I thought she might drop it, but she didn't. That took something. Dykes turned slowly in his chair. "Rizzy." Rizzy looked at him, then at Wolfe. "You have made a mistake." Wolfe did not answer him. He looked at Claire. "Continue." Claire swallowed. "Thomas said the payments were being routed through supply adjustments, and that shipments were being altered on paper before they reached the facility. That the discrepancies appeared in the kitchen records, not the accounts." Bran let out a breath, sharp. "That's impossible. The accounts reflect what they are told," Wolfe said. "If the initial data is false, the accounts will be consistent with that falsity." Bran stared at him. "You're saying the theft wasn't in my books." "I'm saying your books may be accurate," Wolfe said, "which is not the same as true." Crail's smile had vanished. "And the source of the false data?" Wolfe turned his head slightly. "Mr. Rizzy, you receive shipments. You verify contents. You sign for them. If quantities differ from what is recorded, you are in a position to adjust the record or the reality." Rizzy's voice was flat. "I receive what is sent. And if what is sent is less than what is recorded," Wolfe said. "Then someone has stolen before it reaches me," Rizzy said. "Or you have," Wolfe said. Rizzy's eyes hardened. "I do not steal." "You do not consider it theft," Wolfe said. "You consider it adjustment, continuity, survival. Mr. Crail described it well." Crail said nothing. Wolfe continued. "Mr. Voss discovered discrepancies. He traced them not to the accounts, but to the intake. He confronted Mr. Bran, because that is where the records are consolidated. Mr. Bran dismissed him because the records appeared consistent. Mr. Voss persisted. He approached Miss Dykes, who listened and did not act. He intended to approach Mr. Dykes. Before he could do so, he encountered the person actually responsible." Rizzy pushed his chair back a fraction. "This is conjecture." "No," Wolfe said. "It is deduction." "From what?" Rizzy said. "From your behavior," Wolfe said. "From the structure of the discrepancies, from the nature of the notes, and from the plate." Rizzy's lip curled slightly. "The plate?" "Yes," Wolfe said. "The plate you moved." "I did not touch that plate," Rizzy said. "You did," Wolfe said calmly. "You moved it after it was placed, knowing that Mr. Goodwin would notice. You intended to introduce the idea of tampering with the food. That would focus attention on the kitchen, on the possibility of poison, on your domain. It would create confusion and fear, diverting attention from the actual crime." "That's absurd," Rizzy said. "No," Wolfe said. "It is efficient. You are a man of efficiency." Dykes leaned forward. "If this is true—" "It is," Wolfe said. "You have no proof," Rizzy said. "I have more than enough," Wolfe said. "You have opportunity, you have motive, you have demonstrated willingness to manipulate perception, and you have made a critical error." "What error?" Rizzy said. Wolfe's voice was almost gentle. "You assumed that I would be distracted by the possibility of poison, that I would focus on the food. You did not account for my interest in the pattern." Rizzy's eyes flicked just once. Wolfe continued. "Miss Voss wrote the first note to provoke a gathering. You became aware of this. Perhaps you intercepted a communication. Perhaps you observed her behavior. You recognized an opportunity. You wrote the second note, introducing the element of danger. You ensured it reached Mr. Dykes. You wished to escalate the situation, or to create a setting in which suspicion would be universal and evidence obscured." Miss Voss leaned forward. "How would he know about my note?" Wolfe glanced at her. "Because you were not as discreet as you believed. You discussed your plan with someone who had access to both you and this table." Her face went still. "Thomas," she said. "Yes," Wolfe said. "You confided in your brother. He, in turn, confronted Mr. Rizzy, believing he had identified the source of the discrepancies. Mr. Rizzi realized that his activities were about to be exposed. He acted. Rizzi's hands had clenched on the edge of the table. "You are inventing this." "No," Wolfe said. "I am describing it." "How?" Rizzi demanded. Wolfe leaned back slightly. "Mr. Voss disappears after confronting Mr. Bran. That is known, but Mr. Bran had no motive to eliminate him. The discrepancies did not originate in his accounts. Mr. Crail had motive but no access to Mr. Voss at that moment. Miss Dykes had knowledge but no inclination to act. That leaves you. You had access to Mr. Voss at the facility. You had the means to arrange his disappearance without immediate suspicion. And you had the strongest motive, exposure." Rizzi's breathing had changed, just enough. "And the body," I said. "Disposed of with the same efficiency," Wolfe said. "A man accustomed to managing perishables understands disposal." "That proves nothing," Rizzi said, but the edge was gone. Wolfe's eyes held him. "You also made a second error. You underestimated Miss Dykes." Claire didn't move. "You believed her silence indicated ignorance or indifference," Wolfe said. "In fact, it indicated conflict. She suspected you. She did not act, because she lacked proof and feared the consequences. When confronted tonight, she chose to reveal what she knew." Rizzi looked at her, something like betrayal flashing across his face. "You said nothing." "I didn't know," she said. "Not for certain." "And now you do," Wolfe said. Silence again, but this time it had an end. Dykes spoke, his voice low. "Rizzi?" Rizzi did not answer him. He looked at Wolfe. "If I had done what you say, I would not have come here." "You would," Wolfe said. "Because you needed to control the narrative. Because you believed you could manage the situation, introduce confusion, and leave without consequence. Because you underestimated the company." Rizzi's gaze shifted, taking in the table, the room, the walls that had closed around him without his noticing. Then he exhaled. "It was not theft," he said, "as it was balance." No one spoke. "The shipments were adjusted," he said. "Small amounts. No one notices small amounts. They accumulate. They create opportunity." "And Voss noticed," I said. "He noticed numbers," Rizzi said. "He did not understand the system." "He understood enough," Wolfe said. "He understood enough to be dangerous," Rizzi said. "He came to me. He accused me. He said he would go to Dykes. He did not understand what that would do." "So you killed him," Dykes said. Rizzi looked at him. "I removed a problem." The words sat there. Miss Voss made a sound, low and sharp. "You killed him," she said. Rizzi did not look at her. Wolfe spoke. "And tonight you attempted to remove the consequences." Rizzi shook his head once. "No. Tonight I intended to survive them." "And now?" Wolfe said. Rizzi looked around the room again, eyeing slower this time. "Now," he said, "I suppose I do not." I moved. He didn't resist. That was the last efficient thing he did. When it was done, when the police had been called and the statements had begun, and the house had started to return to something like itself, Wolfe was back in his chair, as if he had never left it. Dinner, what was left of it, was cleared. Fritz moved with a kind of offended dignity, restoring order where it had been interrupted. Miss Voss stood near the door, her face composed again, but different now, the purpose spent. Dykes sat heavily, staring at nothing. Claire stood apart, arms folded, as if holding herself together. Crail had gone quiet in a way that suggested he was already calculating the next move in a game that had changed. Bran looked tired. Wolfe looked at none of them. He looked at me. "Mister, it's Goodwin," he said. "A deplorable intrusion. Murder at my table is unacceptable. That it should occur in such a vulgar manner is worse." "You prefer your murders refined," I said. "I prefer them elsewhere," Wolfe said. "And not at all, if possible. Human beings are tedious enough without adding homicide." He closed his eyes. The appetite, he said, is a delicate instrument. When corrupted by greed, it becomes grotesque. Mr. Rizzi mistook appetite for license. He was wrong. I looked at the table, now empty, perfect again. Yeah, I said, and the table didn't choose anything. Wolfe opened one eye. On the contrary, Mr. Goodwin, it revealed. That is sufficient. I went to the kitchen. Fritz had saved a portion. I figured I'd earned it. The police had come and gone in the manner they have when a case arrives, already tied with a ribbon. Rizzi had not attempted poetry or protest. He had offered what he considered explanation, which is never the same thing. Statements had been taken, names written down, timelines constructed in that careful way that turns a living evening into something that can be filed. By the time the door closed behind the last uniform, the brownstone had begun the slow, deliberate process of becoming itself again. That process did not include conversation. Wolfe had returned to the office and resumed his chair as if nothing had interrupted it except a brief and regrettable inconvenience. I took my place at my desk, not because there was work to do, but because the position felt correct, like putting a book back where it belonged, even if you intended to read it again. Miss Voss remained. She stood near the globe, hands clasped, not looking at it, like not looking at anything in particular. The purpose that had brought her here had been spent, and what was left was something quieter and harder to categorize. Dykes had gone. Claire had gone with him. Bran had left with the expression of a man who would spend the next week proving that his books were clean and not enjoy it. Crail had slipped out without comment, which meant he would be heard from later, in some other room, in some other arrangement. That left the three of us. Wolfe opened his eyes. Miss Voss? She turned to him. Yes. You will sit. She did. You have achieved your objective, Wolfe said. Your brother's murderer has been identified and will be prosecuted. The means by which you accomplished this were energetic but imperfect. You introduced unnecessary complications and risks. I know, she said. And you lied, Wolfe said. Yes. You manipulated, Wolfe said. Yes. You exposed innocent people to danger, Wolfe said. She hesitated. I did not intend. Intent is irrelevant, Wolfe said. Consequences not. She met his gaze. I would do it again. I know, Wolfe said. That is why you required my intervention. Silence again, but this time it wasn't empty. It had something in it that hadn't been there before. Not satisfaction, not exactly. Something closer to completion. Why did you come to me? Wolfe said. She frowned slightly. Because you could see what others would not. No, Wolfe said. Because you required a witness whose judgment you trusted more than your own. She considered that. After a moment, she nodded. Yes, she said. Wolfe inclined his head a fraction. That is acceptable. She stood. So thank you. Do not thank me, Wolfe said. You forced my hand. I object to being forced. A ghost of a smile touched her mouth. And yet you acted. I act when necessary, Wolfe said. It is an unfortunate habit. She turned to go, then paused at the door. My brother, she said. He believed in what he was doing. He thought the truth mattered. It does, Wolfe said. Even when it destroys things. Especially then, Wolfe said. Otherwise it is merely decoration. She nodded once, then left. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded louder than it was. I leaned back in my chair. Well, I said. That was cheerful. No, Wolfe said. It was instructive. Depends on what you were trying to learn. That appetite can be corrupted, Wolfe said. That loyalty can be misapplied, so that intelligence without discipline is dangerous. That discipline without ethics is fatal. And that dinner guests should be screened more carefully, I said. He snorted. Dinner guests should not be permitted to arrange themselves. Good policy, I said. might save you some trouble. Trouble is inevitable, Wolfe said. The form it takes is negotiable. Fritz entered then, carrying coffee with the solemnity appropriate to restoration. He set it down, glanced once at Wolfe, once at me, and departed without comment. That meant he had forgiven us enough to continue feeding us. I took a cup. You realize, I said, if Rizzy hadn't tried to get clever with the plate, this might have taken longer. Yes, Wolfe said. So he helped you catch him. He helped me confirm him, Wolfe said. There is a distinction. Sure, I said. You knew before that. I knew the direction, Wolfe said. I required the demonstration. And dessert provided it, I said. Wolfe's eyes closed again just briefly. Dessert, he said, is often decisive. I sipped the coffee. It was perfect, which meant Fritz had reasserted control over the universe. Dykes will be interesting tomorrow, I said. He's going to have to accept that his problem wasn't where he thought it was. He will accept what he can endure, Wolfe said. The rest he will reinterpret. Claire. She will learn, Wolfe said. Or she will not. It is her choice. Crail. He will exploit the situation, Wolfe said. He always intended to. Bran. He will balance his accounts, Wolfe said. It is what he does. And Miss Voss? Wolfe opened his eyes and looked at me. She will remember, he said. That enough? It must be, Wolfe said. Memory is the only justice some people receive. I let that sit. The house was quiet again. Not the tense quiet from before, but the ordinary kind. The kind that belongs to walls that have seen enough to know they will see more. I looked at the table through the open door to the dining room. It was set back to perfection, as if nothing had happened on it except a meal. Funny thing, I said. All that talk about the table choosing. Wolfe's lips moved, almost a smile. The table does not choose, Mr. Goodwin. It reveals what is brought to it. Yeah, I said. And what people bring isn't always what they think it is. Precisely, Wolfe said. He lifted his cup. Appetite, he said, should be satisfied, not indulged beyond reason. When it is, it ceases to be a pleasure and becomes a vice. I raised mine. And vice, I said, tends to leave a bad taste. Wolfe drank. I followed suit.